Mr. Tony Benn. I think he needs no introduction really. He has been a long-term anti-war campaigner and a member of the Labour Party. Mr. Benn?
This campaign comes to the root. I think the most important thing of all that come out of it is that the Muslim community in Britain realise they have millions of friends here, and that is an enormous the way in which the Iraq war, the threat to Iran has developed is to divide us. And as a matter of fact, the World Peace Movement is the most powerful movement in the world today. The New York Times said 3 years ago there are only two superpowers, the United States and the World Peace Movement. And I think that's it. Now, having said that, we meet at a time of really acute danger. I have no inside knowledge as to what American plans are, but when Bush said he wouldn't rule out military force, that would be as direct a threat as we could find. And then the Israelis, of course, have made speeches indicating that if Bush doesn't do it, they'll do it themselves. And I just hesitate to think what would happen if Israel, the fifth most powerful nuclear weapons state in the world, to attack Iran. And this is the danger that we face. And it would be a real danger in many, many ways, one of which is obvious, that if you use ordinary weapons against nuclear installations, then of course you release radioactivity into the atmosphere. So that even without the United States using nuclear weapons, it could be another Hiroshima, or if you like, a Chernobyl, if there was an attack. And you probably saw the other day that 100,000 people in the world are still to die as a byproduct of what happened at Chernobyl. And the radioactive level in Britain is 4 times what it was a few years ago because of the depleted uranium that was used against Yugoslavia and against Iraq. And the trouble, what's so frightening is that it sounds so like the strategy for attacking Iraq. You go to the UN, they can't get a Security Council resolution, the necessary majority, so then you go off on your own. And when I hear that Bush wants it to go to the Security Council, we wonder what would happen if it's paralysed. Would that then be held to be a justification? Bush is a bit more candid sometimes than he means to be when he said the United States is addicted to oil. Now, from what I understand, addicts kill for what they want. And I think that is about the most candid explanation. They want the oil, as they did in Iraq. And this is the situation in which we find ourselves. And another very dangerous thing is happening, which is obvious, I think, from what I said already, the use of religion to justify war. I mean, some people say it's a holy war, a jihad. Others say it's a just war. But whether you call it a holy war or a just war, people who kill those who worship another god are starting a war nobody can stop. And that is the danger. And I don't believe it has anything to do with the differences of theology between Jews, Christians and Muslims. I don't believe that for a moment. It is a war for power and a war for resources presented in such a way as to try and persuade people to believe that God wants them to do it. And this is a terrible thing to do, and it's something we have to think about. Now, can I look at one other aspect of that? Is the history. I sat in Parliament with the man who nationalised the Anglo-Persian oil company. His name is Winston Churchill. In 1914, when the British Navy was moving from coal-fired ships to oil-fired ships, the first of all of the Admiralty, was defence, if you like, was Winston Churchill. And he made a speech in the House of Commons, I should quote, to the conservatives much to their annoyance, saying that the government was being squeezed by oil companies, so he nationalised the Anglo-Persian oil company. And then Somaye nationalised it back again in 1951. And I give you my opinion, I think Somaye was an outstanding Iranian leader. He was a man who was 55 years ago. I remember it very nearly came to war when that happened in 1951. And of course, you all know, Somaye was toppled by the Americans with the help of the British. And the Shah was put there. And the Shah was the American puppet in Iran. And you know, as Editors, so this will make you laugh, I went to see the Shah in 1976. I had 3 hours with him in his palace at Tehran. And one of the things I was asked to say to him is, will you please adopt British nuclear technology? And the Americans were pushing the Shah to go for nuclear power. I was very doubtful about it for the reasons I am, because I'm not very good at nuclear power, but that's my conviction on that of it, the hypocrisy of it. And then, of course, when the revolution came, then the United States armed Saddam Hussein to attack Iran. And now they say that Iran is a threat to the Middle East. It is totally hypocritical on every possible count. And I say something to those Iranians who sometimes come to me and say they don't like the regime. Well, I'm not here to advocate the policies of Ahmadinejad. But you know very well from experience that when a country is threatened, then such civil liberties as they are restricted. Look at this country. I mean, do you imagine the Prime Minister getting elected in 1997 if he'd said, we're going to abandon trial by jury, we're going to make it possible for people to demonstrate outside number 10 or in the Parliament Square. But when a country is under threat, it strengthens the most reactionary elements, if I may use those terms, in the government of that country. And if you want to get the reform and liberation of the people of Iran, as I do as a citizen of the world, then the only way you can do it is by policies of friendship, to give people a sense of security, because that's how it's done. And don't ever be told, and I have to do recently, that really if you bomb Iran and dealt with it in that way, women in Iran will be liberated. Don't believe that for one moment. The way we liberate ourselves. Well, my mother was born in 1897, when we didn't have to vote. 1897, not so very long ago. When I was born in 1925, women weren't allowed to vote until they were 30. This idea of Western democracy and Christianity as being a model of women's liberation does really require a little bit of examination. So that argument must be Then we come to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Now, the Non-Proliferation Treaty provides that nuclear powers will disarm there. Any other country will be entitled to nuclear technology, civil technology, they're trying to stop it. And no country that didn't have nuclear weapons would be attacked by countries that did. All those have been defied in Israel. As I said, it was one of the most powerful nuclear weapon states in the world, armed and supported by the United States. And indeed, America, Bush went to see Pakistan and India, I think, and offered them nuclear technology. Neither of them are members of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And there's no evidence whatsoever that Iran had broken the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Not a shred of evidence from the International Atomic Energy Authority or Fahrenheit or others. This is nothing to do with that. Bush wants the oil, he wants the power, he wants to put the button of his own choice back upon the throne in Tehran. And I tell you something else that's kind of obvious must be, if you really want to spread nuclear weapons, behave as Bush does. Because if Ahmadinejad had nuclear weapons today, Bush would never dare to threaten them. And I do not want to see nuclear weapons spread, because if you don't have them, you might be invaded by the United States from mainland. And yet, that is the logic of what he's doing. I'll just finish by saying this. We are, as I say, a very powerful movement. We represent an overwhelming body of world opinion. We must make clear what our position is. Iran is entitled to civil nuclear power. I say that with some feeling. I'm not in favour of it, and I'm certainly not in favour of nuclear weapons. But there is no justification for an attack on Iran based on the fact they want to enrich uranium for power stations. Secondly, to make absolutely clear, in case there's any doubt about it, there will be no support in Britain if Britain goes along with the policy that Bush may be developing of an attack on Iran. And we must give our support to those in America against it. There were 1,800 physicists wrote to Bush and warned him of the consequences of bombing nuclear establishments in Iran, signed by 5 Nobel Prize winners. I went to number 10 and gave a copy of that to the Prime Minister. That's our position. No to an attack upon Iran, to cooperation with Iran, to goodwill with Iran, and to a sense of security in Iran, because without security, human rights can never, ever, ever be realized. And in the end, those who favour peace are campaigning for human rights in a peaceful world that diverts money from weapons of war to meet the needs of humanity.